Good afternoon, everyone, from the WIUR studios underneath the Pentis Student Union. Welcome to Into the Stands episode number 21, alongside Salesian graduates Colin McGee and Chris Gambino, the local boys. I'm Robbie Basil, your host of today's episode. And today, we're going to start a little bit different. We have some breaking news from Washington, D.C. This is not political. You're welcome for that, by the way. As the Washington Commanders have reportedly begun the process of selling the team with Dan Snyder to a new owner for approximately $6 billion. Chris, we'll start with you. How big is this for the NFL?
Well, it's huge, and especially, of course, for them, for that organization, and for that fan base. Honestly, it feels like forever now that we've been waiting for something like this to happen. Obviously, there's been so much controversy and the around surrounding the ownership of that organization and overall when it comes to the fan experience, whether it's the stadium or of course the performance for the team. It just feels like this ownership, of course, coming from someone kind of on the outside, not really I'm not a Commanders fan or Commanders enthusiast in any way, but it just seems like the ownership has been just a real mess. So it feels like this is just huge for that organization. And the NFC East, maybe not this year, but maybe in the near future, Washington, that team can be very different from the narrative that surrounds them with this ownership.
Well, look, I remember even in recent history, we were seeing reports of FBI raids or FBI investigations into Dan Snyder and his organization. I mean, it's fair to say this was clearly one of the worst run organizations in sports, and they've shown that from multiple facets. There was a whole controversy even with the name change. There was a controversy around how they, even honored Sean Taylor. There's people were kind of in uproar over that. There also been, complaints about the stadium being one of the worst in football. I think you all kind of remember watching that video of Jalen Hurts walk into the tunnel and the stadium just collapsed. I mean, this has been an organization who, although they have a great history, they still have 3 Super Bowl championships. They just really haven't been good, or they haven't really had, kind of good vibes going on in that building for a while. So I think getting Dan Snyder out of there is going to help them for sure. I think they're still a team that is pretty solid. They're nothing too crazy, pretty kind of middle of the pack in terms of where they are in the NFL, but maybe with a better ownership group, being in Washington, it's still a pretty big market. Maybe you can attract some more talent and get back in the NFC East, because they were the only team in that division that didn't make the playoffs last year. The Giants, Cowboys, and Eagles all made it to the divisional round, and the Commanders were on the couch the entire time. So they're definitely looking to get back to where they were, once proud franchise. So maybe not as good for the Giants or for Giants fans, but for Commanders, definitely good to do. But I think we also got to kind of get into the Giants, but I'll let Robbie go first on Dan Snyder leave.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think this is a humongous win for everyone in the league because of how much controversy. You guys have dived into it a little bit, but how much controversy that there's been in this situation and how long this has taken. I think it's shown a very negative light, not just on Washington, but as the league as a whole. Because I mean, you've seen this stuff with LA, with the owners with the Chargers, with Kroenke when he originally moved from St. Louis to LA. There's been controversies with owners that there didn't really have to be, like didn't have to happen. So I feel like with something like this going away, I'll say as going away, I feel like this is a humongous win for the league as a whole, for Washington's fan base. And I think this will bring a more positive light on the organization. And for the new owner, I believe he was the owner of the Sixers and the Devils, I believe is going to be the new ownership group. I think that's a great win for them. I think they're going to know what they're doing. Hopefully they can fix some of the stuff that Dan Snyder did, like maybe get a new statue or better way to honor Sean Taylor. But we'll stick with the NFL because we do have one more announcement. We'll go into that in a second. With the New York Giants, what the heck is going on there? Because you have Saquon Barkley and Dexter Lawrence apparently not going to, was it OTA? It's around OTAs time already, isn't it?
It's voluntary.
Voluntary OTAs. That's right. My apologies on that. What are your guys' thoughts on that? Because when I saw it, I'm like, this is a mess. But I'll dive into this first before I get the actual Giants fans here on this. This is a ginormous problem, more than you would think. And we talked about this weeks ago when Daniel Jones signed that contract. It would ruin the organization with cap situations and all that. And I've said it before. I think Saquon Barkley should have been the one that was re-signed. We all agreed to that. This is the repercussions for it. I think this was all avoidable. Dexter Lawrence, I don't know if it's as avoidable, But I think Saquon Barkley's one was 100% avoidable, and this goes on Joe Shane. I think this is a mistake by the Giants. I think you can get out of it. Will it cost more? Maybe. Because like, the new contract demands, who knows how much he's going to want now. Like, you had your chance weeks ago, almost a month ago now, and you messed it up. Now it's going to go on ownership and the GM to figure it out and hopefully resolve this conflict before it gets out of hand in June, July. Do I think it's possible to get out of it? Absolutely. I think they're going to figure it out. I think they have the perfect group with their GM, with Dable. I think they have the perfect duo and owner to get themselves out of it. If this was on a team, like let's say Washington, if Washington had this, they would have traded both players already. Think about it. I think one of them, it's the same thing. Like it's like saying like a team like Seattle when they traded or released Bobby Wagner and traded Russell Wilson. Like they would have done the same thing if they're in the situations that they're in. A lot of teams would have done this, like we just traded, but one or both of them already. But I feel like with the Giants, they're not. I think they're going to be the one team that does not mess it up. And I think by July, we will see at latest July. I think June we'll see. I think in the coming weeks, maybe even into June, I think we will see a resolution to the conflict at hand. And I will probably comfortably say, knock on wood, that both Dexter Lawrence and Saquon Barkley will be on new contracts and playing for the blue and white for the G-Men starting in September. Chris.
Well, it needs to happen. I mean, it's plain and simple. I mean, I don't want to repeat myself, but we mentioned how important those two, Lawrence and Barkley, were to the team last year. I mean, it's right now, it's really scary. The possibility of Saquon, and Dexter Lawrence, not one of them like not having a very long future with the Giants and this organization. Both are vital to this organization's success. Daniel Jones is, of course, I think those two guys were, they were vital to Jones' success. So the Giants gave the money to Jones, and which granted, quarterback, most important position on the football field, and you need to have that. And we talked about the money that goes to Jones and how we try to kind of get around to the thought process behind signing him, but this was going to be the the other side. It was a double-edged sword signing Daniel Jones to that contract. Of course, it's a guy you loved a long time, but now you're going to be into some cap trouble eventually. As you mentioned, Robbie, something can happen, right? There's still time, right? There's still ownership. I mean, has to understand how important these two guys are, but something has to happen soon.
Look, I mean, it kind of hurt to see this news this morning, but I think Saquon's kind of earned the right to do this because you go back to 2018 when we first drafted him number 2 overall. He was supposed to be kind of the lifeboat for kind of a sinking team. The Giants had the second worst record in football. They made the playoffs the year before, but clearly there was just nothing there. Eli Manning was clearly aging, and they thought that Saquon would be kind of that life preserver the rest of the way. And I mean, first couple of years, obviously, he was a superstar. And ever since, Odell Beckham got traded, since Eli Manning retired, I think that he has established himself as the face of this franchise. I'd say not Daniel Jones. I think Saquon's the face of this franchise. I think that being that incredible of a talent at the running back position, I think just electrifying. Really, all the years where Daniel Jones wasn't having good years, Saquon was the one consistent force on that offense. So I think that, Saquon Barkley watching Daniel Jones having the good year, which he did, winning the playoff game and all that, seeing him get that huge contract, I think Saquon kind of feels that he deserves to get paid as well. He deserves that. I think to some degree he does. There's always that argument that once again, that if you pay a running back a huge amount of money, you're not going to win the Super Bowl. But once again, if you don't have Saquon Barkley, what does the Giants offense look like right now? We've been talking so much about possibly getting a receiver, and they made a couple of guys who could be solid additions. You got like a Paris Campbell. You got other guys as well. You got Darren Waller. That's going to be a huge addition as well. But say Darren Waller's not healthy and Saquon Barkley's holding out. What do you have on that offense? What is Daniel Jones really going to do? How is he going to be able to elevate himself? Saquon Barkley retweeted a tweet from Micah Parsons today where Micah Parsons responded to a tweet where Saquon had, 931 rushing yards his first 9 games of the season, but only 359 in his last 8. And Micah Parsons saying the reason that was wise because teams plan on just, containing Saquon Barkley, limiting him as the only piece of that offense. And that, you have to pay that man because he's really the focal point of your offense. And once again, it's true. Saquon Barkley put so much off the pressure of Daniel Jones this year, and it really helped them, just to stay with those short intermediate throws, have a solid running game behind him. Saquon Barkley is so critical. And I just wish that the Daniel Jones contract did not get as out of hand as it did, because we even said from the start, $40 million is way too much. Say if you even paid Daniel Jones $35 million a year, the extra $5 million they could have went to Saquon Barkley, that would have been good for both sides. But just the fact that these contract negotiations got way too far out of hand, this is kind of what we're left with. So I'm just really hoping that number 26 can get this contract re-signed. I think at least for me, he's my favorite Giants player. I think that he's the guy who is kind of the face of this Giants team. I know that, Daniel Jones being the quarterback, but I've always been, kind of a bigger Saquon guy. Hopefully we can get that deal done. Dexter Lawrence, that was one that, kind of hurts to see as well, because he still has a year. I think he just did it because of Saquon, because he still has a year left on his deal. He's trying to capitalize off the big year, which he did have. I mean, you've kind of seen stuff like that before. It's just really unfortunate that Dexter Lawrence did decide to do this, because he could have just played another year. We've had this conversation next offseason, but he wants to get his money as well. So we'll see what Joe and Shane does. But just like I said, my one concern going forward is just that even if you pay Saquon and Dexter Lawrence, what's the rest of the cap situation looking like? Where are we going to sign more guys? Because I said it before and I'll say it again. The biggest knock on this Giants team in the playoffs is that they weren't talented enough. They were a very well-coached team, but they didn't have the talent. If you spend all this money on these guys, you're really not going to get much more talented. You're going to have a similar roster, so you're going to need to just rely on Brian Dable coaching his way to victories. And, that might be the case, but we'll have to still wait and see. But hopefully things go well for the Giants. Hopefully we can get this stuff worked out, and we can have a pretty good season next year, because I haven't seen back-to-back good Giants seasons in a very long time. But we'll move off from the NFL for now. Actually, before we land off from the NFL, I'll just say that, I'll give kind of a preview to our draft special here. I do think the Giants may take a running back in the early rounds. I feel that's something they may do.
Because speaking of the draft, I think the number one running back, it's bold to think that the Giants would take a running back in this situation. But at the same time, I think Bijan Robinson out of Texas is the best running back. I think one of the best offensive players available. I think he can go at number 12. Some people thought the Jets might even take him. We're not. We're not. Please. But at the same time, I think he can fall to 20. I think the Giants can maybe move up and make a move for him. But at the same time, I would love the Giants to. There's a lot of great receivers. I think a phenomenal fit on this team would be Zay Flowers out of Boston College, Quentin Jefferson from TCU, maybe Smith-Njigba if he falls that far. Which he probably won't. But I think the Giants have a lot of options. It's if they're going to pick the right one. That's my big thing with them. But speaking of the draft, we do have one brief announcement. I've officially gotten our first patron to join us for the NFL Draft Special. And you'll see him in our final guest segment from 10 to 11 p.m. on the night of the NFL Draft, the first round. And you've seen him sit right pretty much where I am. When you saw him at the World Cup Special back in December. It's been that long, I believe, since he's been on the show. And we've missed him, and we're bringing him back. Christian Eastlake joins us again on April 27th. We're in talks to get more people on the stream. We'll hopefully announce everyone next week. Or if you follow us on Instagram at Into the Stands, we'll hopefully be announcing them in the coming days. But we'll move on to our big topic of the day, our big feature topic, the NBA playoffs. Now, we haven't talked much NBA on this show. And not for good reason. Well, there's been a lot going on. I'm not the biggest NBA guy. But I feel like for the NBA playoffs, and we all agree, that this would be the perfect time to really dive into a lot of these teams. So let's begin. What we're doing today, we're going to go over our bracket predictions. And by the way, if anyone wants to do a bracket, the website we all use, let me pull it up real quick. Sorry, is the NBA Pick'em on NBA.com, but we're not sponsored. We're not doing anything like that. And what we're going to do, we're each going to go over one by one the round we're going to go over in the specific conference, and they'll have like a little bit of a debate for the next 40 to 45 minutes or so. So I'll begin with the Western Conference, as is the top bracket on my end. Well, I'll quickly pick the Pick'em game tonight, or whenever the next Pick'em game playing games are. With OKC and Minnesota, I have the Thunder. Yes, I have Oklahoma City. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is that guy, and he will get the job done. Unfortunately, they will not get through Denver, who wins in 6 games. Well, and I make this pick, and we had a little bit of a meeting before this. Some people who don't really like Denver even in this matchup, because some people think Denver are frauds. I do feel like they're going to go down at one point in this series, but I think Denver comes away with this series and gets the win that they rightfully deserve. Next matchup, moving down the bracket, the 4-5 matchup, I have the Phoenix Suns in 6 games. They have a lot of star power. I think the Clippers will give them trouble, but I think Phoenix, Devin Booker, and company, I think they get it done. Sacramento and Golden State, I think is one of the most coin flip matchups in the entire bracket, other than for some reason Memphis and LA is, and I'll talk about that in a second. I have the Sacramento Kings in 7 games. I think this is the one team every year that just comes out of nowhere. I mean, and they're a 3 seed and they're coming out of nowhere this year. Like, I think Sacramento, with the interesting roster they have, are good enough. Yes, Sacramento is good enough to make a run. I really do think so. And I'll keep going in a little bit, say how far they go. And then Memphis, LA. Whew. I've picked this matchup about 8 different times in the last 2 hours. The Los Angeles Lakers get it done in 6 games. And we talked about before the show, who will guard Anthony Davis? Jaren Jackson. He's a pretty good interior defender. I think he'll cause problems. Who the hell is going to guard LeBron? Dylan Brooks? Okay, he's decent in the perimeter. But when LeBron goes to the drive or the fadeaway, will Dylan Brooks be able to guard that? Probably not. And people could go on and say LA's depth may hold them back a little bit. It might. But LA has proven that 2 guys will get them far in the playoffs already years ago when they won the quote-unquote Mickey Mouse Championship, which was actually really well worded. It was saying that was in Orlando. But at the same time, I have the Lakers winning in 6. Chris, quick thoughts on my picks before you dive into yours.
Well, you had a lot of good picks there. Of course, I think I disagree with maybe 1 or 2 of them, but overall,
I think we're all going to disagree with 1 or 2 of them.
Yeah. Starting, yeah. I mean, I have. I also agree with you. I think Oklahoma City Thunder will get that done. We'll get the job done against the Timberwolves. Timberwolves, of course, had a tough loss against the Lakers the other day.
Situation with Gobert.
Exactly, and I just think everything. Of course, they're still in it. They could still make it. Of course, it's just 1 game away, but I really think the clubhouse is a little wonky after a couple tough circumstances there. So I'm going to say the Thunder play the Nuggets, and I'm going to say the Nuggets win in 5. They're still a really good team. I don't have the Nuggets going much further than that, but I will say they win in 5. Phoenix against the Clippers. I'm going to go with the Clippers. Not the Clippers. I'm going to go with the Suns in 6.
I was about to say.
In 6. Look, the Clippers are a good team, but the Suns, I mean, KD, Booker, I mean, I don't think you can bet against that. I don't think many teams are going to be able to beat that. Sacramento against the Warriors. This one was tough for me. A few minutes ago, I was considering choosing the Kings to win this. I really like the Kings. I think they're a really good young group with a lot of potential. I mean, they're the 3 seed this year, but the Warriors have the experience. They have the champions, the winners. They're going to find a way to get it done. I think it's going to be a close affair. I think the Warriors are going to win in 7 games. And then Memphis against the Lakers, as you just talked about, I'm going to say the Grizzlies win in 7. It's tough betting against playoff LeBron, but this Memphis team, the 2 seed, great team. It's going to be a tight matchup as well. I was considering making the Grizzlies win maybe a little sooner, maybe in 5 or 6, but I think it's going to be. I think that I'd watch out for that one. I think it's going to be a really close matchup. I think Memphis is going to win at the very end, fourth quarter at the very end. It's going to be a very close game. So that's my Western Conference first round.
So let me get into mine. Once again, I'm going to stick with the field here. I'm going to go for the OKC Thunder to beat the Timberwolves in the playing game. Obviously, the Timberwolves, as Robbie was mentioned, a lot of problems there. You have Jaden McDaniels breaking his hand, punching a wall. You have Kyle Anderson and Rudy Gobert fighting. Just things are really falling apart there.
Anderson of all people, my God.
I mean, yeah. I mean, former San Antonio Spur, of course, but Oklahoma City Thunder, I think you're going to take that one. And I do think the Thunder are going to give Denver Nuggets a pretty good shot because I feel like what the Thunder have with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, they have pretty good young pieces as well. Jalen Williams, also, Lou Dort has always been, kind of a problem there as well. I'm going to go with the Denver Nuggets of the win in 6 games because, as I said, I'm not really high on Denver, but I can't forget as well, Jamal Murray is a very good playoff performer. I've seen it firsthand in a few instances. Jamal Murray against the Clippers. I think he's going to have a huge series. I think he's going to be the best player on the Nuggets in this postseason, not equal to Jokic. So I think Nuggets get it done. They win in 6 games. The Suns and the Clippers, definitely one of the more key matchups we have here in this first round. We have Kawhi Leonard versus Kevin Durant. We have Russell Westbrook versus Kevin Durant. But the Russell Westbrook part is what kind of concerns me here because we saw how bad that experiment worked out for the Los Angeles Lakers. And man, seeing Russell Westbrook get that much minutes in a playoff series, I don't think it's going to go well for the Clippers. The Clippers also obviously missing Paul George. He had that injury where he's going to go down. It's not sure when he's going to come back, if he'll come back for this series. But the Phoenix Suns are just too talented. I have them winning the 6 games, especially if Paul George is out, because I do think Kawhi Leonard is still one of the top players in basketball, but he can't do it on his own. He's had good playoff runs before, but just the Suns team is too loaded. I have Phoenix winning the 6. I do think the Clippers give a pretty good fight, though. Sacramento Kings and Golden State Warriors, and this is one of the more fun ones, isn't it? We have the surprise team of the year against the defending champions, but been kind of a weird year for the Warriors, right? They had a pretty bad road record, pretty horrendous on the road, actually. Been pretty good at home, though. So I can kind of see how this series will play out. I think that Sacramento, we saw the prices of those games in Sacramento are kind of outrageous. A lot of hype surrounding that matchup. I think Sacramento takes the first 2 games. I think the Kings jump out to an early 2-0 lead. I think that place is going to be roared. The place is going to be rocking. Warriors are not very good on the road, but once I get back to Oracle, or not Oracle anymore, I kind of miss Oracle Arena, but once we get back to the Chase Center, I think the Warriors take the next 2 there. And I think that in that Game 5, the series tied, I think the Warriors with the championship experience, they take Game 5 and they take Game 6, winning 4 in a row, winning in 6. Now, the Canes have had a phenomenal year. I love what they're doing. De'Aaron Fox, Domantas Sabonis, Mike Brown, coming from the Warriors, actually, definitely coach of the year. Did such a great job with that group.
I think he's going to win. I think they highlight something with him winning it today.
Yeah, but definitely whenever they do officially announce that, he's definitely the shooter for that award. Such a great team that they're doing here. Love what they're doing, breaking the longest playoff drought in sports, which now belongs to the New York Jets, actually. So I think that the Golden State Warriors will win that one in 6. Moving on to the final matchup, we got Memphis Grizzlies and Los Angeles Lakers. Obviously, the more hyped up one we have in this first round, right? Lakers started off the year 2-10, the bottom of the Western Conference. They're able to come back, and now here they are, after rebuilding that team at the trade deadline. I'm not big on the Lakers, though. I get it that, obviously seeing LeBron James in the playoffs, you think that he's going to automatically go off. It's going to be great. But remember, we have not seen that LeBron in a while. We saw what happened in 2021 when they faced the Phoenix Suns, a clearly better team. They got blown off. They really got run off the court. I believe it was a 5 or 6 game series, but Phoenix won it pretty handily near the end. I think a similar outcome happens here. I think the Lakers can have a few competitive games. Don't get me wrong, but I have the Memphis Grizzlies taking this one in 5. I think this team is just 2 together. They're a younger outfit than the Los Angeles Lakers are, and I think they're going to have a pretty big postseason here. So I got the Memphis Grizzlies taking that 1 in 5, and that's my Western Conference first round.
All right, we'll head to the bottom portion of the bracket with the Eastern Conference. I think this is way more predictable. And for good reason. We'll kick it off with the play-in matchup. I have the Bulls beating the Heat. The Heat, I have no words for them. And then Milwaukee will absolutely run through the Bulls in 4 games. It's a sweep. Zach LaVine is good at basketball, but Giannis and a healthy Chris Middleton this time will absolutely walk through Chicago. It's unfortunate. I think Chicago had a very down year, probably one of the most disappointing teams in the league this year. But I don't think they have not much of a chance. And then the second matchup, you two are going to hate me for this one. Cleveland takes this convincingly. Oh boy, Donovan Mitchell, he could have been traded to either one of these teams, but the battle of who could have gotten Donovan Mitchell goes to the team that actually has Donovan Mitchell. I have the Cavs winning in 5. I think the depth on both teams is trash. However, I think the star power on Cleveland is better. Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell, I think, will have a field day. Maybe they will lose a game in the Garden. But they will not lose at home. Cavs takes this 1 in 5. It's going to be very similar. I feel like the hype is somewhat similar to the one with Atlanta a couple of years ago. With Julius Randle looking really good. They have some depth. They look all right. And then they're just going to fall apart. Cavs win this 1 in 5 due to the pressure that I feel like the Knicks do have some pressure to win this series after the bottle job that they had a couple of years ago. I do have the Cavs in 5. Brooklyn and Philly. I'm sorry, Brooklyn. Your run is done. Philadelphia takes this 1 in 5 games. James Harden is really good. Joel Embiid's really good. They're going to both of them, even if the rest of the team shows up, it won't. Even if Brooklyn plays out of their minds, I do think Brooklyn wins a game at home. like New York, they're both out in the first round. The first round proper is how I call it. And then the bottom matchup, Boston, Atlanta. I really do want Atlanta to win a game, but they're not. They're too one-dimensional. I think Trae Young. I think the guards are going to get overpowered by Jason Tatum. If you forgot about this, your MVP pick from all the way back at the beginning of the year, Jason Tatum. I think he goes off in this series, scores over 30 plus a game. Boston takes this one convincingly with the brooms in a sweep. Chris.
Well, starting off, of course, going back to what you said, I am also going to pick the Bulls to beat the Heat.
Are we all picking the same play matchup? Are we all picking the same teams? It feels like it is.
Look, DeMar DeRozan had a good game the other day against the Raptors, and that's been a problem for him and teams in the past. Zach LaVine, Nikola Vucevic, they're a good three. I think they're going to beat the Heat. I think they're going to lose to the Bucks in 5. I'm going to give them a game.
Okay.
I know they're a very disappointing team, but I'm going to say they get a game on the Milwaukee Bucks in Chicago, but I don't think they're going to do much after that. I think the Bucks are going to run away with it. Other than that, no. Okay. Listen, I wanna go with Cleveland because Cleveland was my underrated team going into the season. I am a Knicks fan, so this is clearly biased, but I'm gonna say the Knicks win in 7. I know it's very.
So they're gonna win a game in Cleveland.
Sure.
They're
Yes.
gonna win a game in Cleveland. Okay.
You know what? I think they're gonna win game 1. I think they're gonna win game 1. I think they're gonna win game 1. I think they're gonna win out in the Garden. Or not in the Garden. Sorry, not win out the Garden.
Yeah.
It's gonna be they're gonna have to.
So they're gonna win 2 games.
Actually, yeah, they're gonna have to win out the Garden and lose the rest of the games in Cleveland. Sorry. Yeah, they will.
Okay.
It's gonna be tough. There's very little logic that goes on this side, right? It's clearly a bias. Clearly a biased choice, right? But you know what? Who cares, right? I'm a Knicks fan. I want to see my Knicks win a playoff series finally.
Fair enough.
Screw it.
That's fair.
They're gonna win in 7. Who cares? and Julius apparently is having an issue right now,
Of course he is.
injury. But
Don't
you
worry,
know
he'll be
what?
back.
Who cares?
He'll be back.
Who cares? The Knicks are gonna win in 7.
All right.
Because I don't even think Cleveland would do much against Milwaukee regardless. So you know what? Let's have a little fun. Let's say the Knicks win in 7. Who cares? The other side of New York, Brooklyn. Other side of New York basketball, Brooklyn, Philadelphia. Philadelphia's going to run away with it in 5. I don't really. I know Philadelphia's got a lot of pressure on them with Harden and Embiid and for years, right? For years, that team's had pressure. Getting eliminated early, but if they're going to get eliminated early, it's not going to be against the Brooklyn Nets. A good team, right? Overall, Mikal Bridges is a very good player, but and the other players around him as well. They completely changed that team and the contracts and the players who kind of ran the team, and everything is different with this organization. But I don't think it's going to be enough to beat the 76ers. They win in 5. And then Boston versus Atlanta. Boston's going to win in 4. I don't really think there's much else to say. Boston is a terrific, terrific basketball team. And Atlanta is extremely mid. I mean, that literally. What were the stats?
They just were 1 game within 500 for the entire year. Either they were 1 game positive, 500, 1 game below 500. And they went on for like 2 months straight.
To describe it in the word mid.
Absolutely.
They're gonna lose to the Celtics.
All right, so I'm not doing this for the sake of just being different. I do think they're going to win this game. I'm going to go with the Miami Heat over the Chicago Bulls because I think the Bulls, obviously DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, Nikola Vucevic, but outside of that, I don't believe they have a double-digit score. And I think that and outside of that, the Miami, I think if anything, it might be Patrick Williams, but outside of that, the Miami Heat, obviously have that championship experience. It didn't look good against the Atlanta Hawks, but obviously when you're playing a team like that, they can Trae Young and DeJounte Murray can always explode for huge point per game averages. But I'm going to take the Miami Heat here. I think they're just too well-rounded of a team to miss this postseason, but they're going to get absolutely destroyed by Milwaukee. Milwaukee sweeps them. I think that we've seen Milwaukee and Miami in the postseason. It feels like really a lot, and regardless, no matter what the matchup is, it's always one-sided. Either Milwaukee blows them out or Miami did it like how they did in the bubble, but I think that Milwaukee takes this 1 in 4 games very convincingly. Let's move on to the Cavs and the Knicks. Now, I am a San Antonio Spurs fan, but I've always liked the Knicks, always New York team. So you know what? Go New York, go New York, go. Knicks win in 7. I'm taking it too, and I'm going to explain it here. I'm going to give some reason. And so, obviously, Donovan Mitchell was a huge topic in the conversation. Now, everyone thought that he was going to be a Knick. People thought that he was bound to happen. He's a New York guy, but he ended up going to Cleveland. But what hit did the Knicks do in response? They got Jalen Brunson from the Dallas Mavericks, and obviously the Mavericks have been missing him because man, they didn't even make this play-in tournament. They're not even here right now. They're on the couch. Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic really did not work out. But Jalen Brunson has been very good for the Knicks this year. I argue that he should have been an All-Star. The only reason why he wasn't is because the Eastern Conference has really backloaded on guards. I think that Jalen Brunson is a difference maker in this series because you look at the Knicks roster, they have Emmanuel Quickly and Quentin Grimes, two great defenders who I think could guard Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland. Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell are not good defenders. Who is going to guard Jalen Brunson? And if you remember last playoffs when it was the Dallas Mavericks versus the Utah Jazz, Jalen Brunson had a huge explosion. This is really where his name first came out. This is kind of how he got that huge contract from the Knicks, dropping, I believe it was 40 points in that first round of that playoff series. I think that Jalen Brunson is a big-time player performer, and he will do it here in this series. Now, Julius Randle's injury that concerns you, but say even if he's back in game 2 or 3, he doesn't have to be the main guy because I think that Jalen Brunson will take over this team. But say if Julius can kind of do what he was doing in the regular season, maybe 20, 22 points per game, we can maybe see it. Now, listen, I think that Cleveland is the better team, but I just feel this is finally the next time, They have not been past the first round since I believe it was 2012 or 2013. So I think they get it done here. Knicks in 7. I'm not sure how confident I am in this, but I just want to see it happen. So go Knicks. The Sixers and the Brooklyn Nets. Now, obviously, the Brooklyn Nets, Mikal Bridges has, generated a lot of hype as he deservedly should because he's been pretty good for them. But ever since the Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, James Harden fiasco all ended and blew up in their face, Nets have only been 12 and 15 since then. So I think that while Mikal Bridges is very talented, I don't think the Nets have been very good up until this point. So I have Philadelphia sweeping them. I think the Sixers overmatched them. And, I think that Brooklyn is going to need to start kind of a long rebuild here because that era with all the superstars kind of ring chasing, that really did not go their way. So I have Philadelphia winning in 4, but I'm sure it's cool for Nets fans to be here. Moving on to Boston and Atlanta, I think that the Boston Celtics take care of this one pretty easily. They win in 5 games. I think that the Hawks take a game, just because of the firepower of Trae Young. We saw him in the playoffs before on the Eastern Conference Finals run. Rumors are starting to swirl whether, the Hawks may trade Trae Young. I think that could happen in the future, but Boston's just clearly the better team. They made the finals last year. Boston wins that 1 in 5.
Heading into the conference semis, and we're just going to go through all 4 of them here. My bracket, I think we all have the same matchup here. We have Denver and the Suns. Oh boy. And I'm accustomed to love to see teams with Kevin Durant absolutely bottle it after the first round. And this is no surprise. Phoenix will blow it and lose to the Nuggets in 7 games. You mentioned Jamal Murray. He's really good. I mean, I don't really trust the Suns defense very much. I mean, that's just me personally. But I think the Nuggets get it done in 7 games. Heading down the western part of the bracket, the Kings and the Lakers. Oh, boy. Who would have thought this matchup? I think, real serious real quick. I think if people are predicting the season back in October, you would have thought the seeds were flipped at best. And the Sacramento Kings are my glory hunting squad this year. They win in 5 games after dropping game 1. I feel like the media will really think the Lakers are legit, and then they're just going to fall apart. I think Sacramento, the underdogs of this year, get it done in 5 games. Moving down the bracket, I originally had Milwaukee in 7 for this. And the team won't change because I realized that I literally was about to go against my own logic, saying Milwaukee was going to win because they had more firepower. Cleveland's not going to have enough depth to guard anyone on Milwaukee after this series with the Knicks. Granted, I say Cleveland in 5, but if even Cleveland wins in 7, they're not going to be. I don't think they're good enough to even stop Milwaukee. Milwaukee wins in 5. Cleveland will take a game in Cleveland though. And then in the bottom matchup, Sixers, disappointment. They're another team that will disappoint me. Boston wins in 5 games. I think Boston, Jason Tatum goes off again. I feel like this could be Boston's time, but I don't know. We'll have to go through the rest of my bracket to see how far they really go. Chris, go through your conference semifinal matchups.
Well, first of all, I really want to make a quick change to my Knicks pick. I do have them winning the matchup against the Cavaliers, but it felt weird. I said they're going to win game 1 and win game 7. That can't happen.
I was about to say.
That's completely my bad. But it also feels weird saying that they're going to win in 6 that they're going to win game 1 and then go out and win out the Garden. I just really feel like they're going to win game 1. So you know what? They're going to win in 6. The Knicks are going to win in 6 games.
Okay.
So now going to my picks. Denver against the Phoenix Suns. This is where Denver finally leaves. I hope they had fun against Oklahoma City Thunder. They're going to need it because they're not going to have fun. They're going to lose. You know what? They're going to win. They're going to win at Denver. They're going to lose in 5 to the Suns. Memphis Warriors. This is a really tough matchup. I'm going to say the Warriors. The Grizzlies win in 7.
Okay.
It's a very tight match. I understand the Warriors, right? It took them some time this season. It wasn't the season they wanted to have, but they have the experience, they have the talent. They know they've been here plenty of times, but they're gonna fall short. They're gonna lose in 7. Regardless of what I picked with the Knicks, they're gonna lose they're gonna lose in 5 to the Bucks. That is probably a crazier thing to say than them beating the Cavaliers in 6. The fact that the Knicks are going to get a win in this series in the Garden, I believe they will. And if you're a Knicks fan, I think if this is how the season pans out for you, you have to be ecstatic. You went to the conference semifinals and then lost. You got a game against the Bucks, but unfortunately, that's where the magic stops for the Knicks. They're going to lose in 5 to the Bucks. And as for Philadelphia and Boston, I'm going to say Boston wins in 5. I really like Boston. I don't think sneak peeks to my next pick. I don't think they're going to beat the Bucks, but I really like Boston, what they've done this season. And Philadelphia, I believe, this matchup's happened before. Plenty of times. They're gonna take care of business against Philadelphia again. Philadelphia yet again is going to be trying to figure out what the answers. Trying to find the answers to getting over that hump and just getting to the finals, just in the first place, let alone winning it. They're not going to figure that out this year. They're going to lose to the Celtics in 5.
I believe my bracket went away for a second, but I got it pulled back up here. So let's get into it. So starting off with Denver and Phoenix. Now, I think that the Phoenix Suns also win this series, and I have them winning in 5 games. And the reason why is because I'm going to call back a previous series. 2021 second round, it was also the Phoenix Suns and the Denver Nuggets. Now, if you remember correctly, the Phoenix Suns swept them. They swept them out of the building. And my argument is that the Denver Nuggets are going to be adding Jamal Murray in this series, but Phoenix is going to be adding Kevin Durant. I don't see that much really between the rosters that's going to really convince me that Denver is going to be better than the Phoenix Suns, because I don't think they are. And you look back at this 2021 series, the Phoenix Suns pretty much blew them out the building. Now, obviously, they lost some of their depth trading away, for Kevin Durant, but I think just star power alone, Nikola Jokic, he really hasn't shown he can step up in the playoff level. I mean, he's, obviously a great player in terms of, the efficiency stats and those other, more advanced analytics, but I just don't really see Denver piecing it together and going on that run. Now, they beat the Clippers in the bubble as well. That was a pretty big series. Went to the Western Conference Finals, but I just think that the Phoenix Suns get it done. I think they're clearly the better team, and I think they win this series in 5 games, which is going to raise even more controversy if Nikola Jokic ultimately ends up winning his first straight MVP. So moving over now to the other series, the Golden State Warriors and the Memphis Grizzlies. This is going to be very fun as well because they kind of have a little bit of a rivalry going on now. We see Dylan Brooks and Klay Thompson going at each other a lot. Klay Thompson reminding them that he does in fact have 4 rings, but I think this is going to be a very fun series to watch. I think this is kind of old school, new school to some degree. But I had Memphis winning in 7. I think that it's their time now to kind of get over that Warrior hump. And once again, Warriors are not a good road team. So I think that's going to kind of hurt them here to some degree. Steph Curry's obviously getting up there in age. You're going to need a lot of Jordan Poole. Still yet to be seen if he will have a huge postseason. We still got to wait on that. But I think the Grizzlies are, obviously a more cohesive unit. They're a really great defensive team as well. I think that Jaren Jackson Jr. at this point is a better defender than Draymond Green is. So I think that the Grizzlies do take this one in 7. Moving over to the Eastern Conference, the New York Knicks and Milwaukee Bucks. I also have the Bucks winning this one in 5. I just think the Knicks get one in the Garden, but outside of that, Milwaukee's going to run them off the floor for the rest of the series. But ultimately, you can't get too mad at that. And then the Philadelphia 76ers versus the Boston Celtics. Now, this is going to be my biggest pick probably of my bracket. So get ready for this. I'm going to have the Philadelphia 76ers beating the Boston Celtics in 7 games. And the reason why I'm going to do this, what team has more pressure on them in this postseason than the Philadelphia 76ers? They have had a history where, they had the process a couple years ago, or actually if you wait a few years back, this is the kind of an era that was promised to bring championships. You have Joel Embiid. You had Ben Simmons. Obviously, the Ben Simmons situation really blew up in their face, and he had to get out of there. So now you have Joel Embiid and James Harden. Joel Embiid, a guy who was looking to win his first MVP this year, phenomenal player, do not get me wrong, but he has always kind of been under a big spotlight. Obviously, unlike Nikola Jokic in Denver, he's in a way bigger market in Philadelphia. He's been expected to really take that leap, bring the Sixers back to glory. This is a team who kind of has one of the best traditions in NBA history, but they have not won a championship since 1983. Then you move over to James Harden, and man, what can you really say about James Harden in the playoffs? He has been expected to do so much. He's only ever made it to the finals once. That was when he was riding the bench of the Oklahoma City Thunder. So he needs a big series here as well. Doc Rivers, the coach, obviously. He won a championship with the Celtics in 2008, but he really hasn't been able to do much after that. He's having a lot of bad postseason losses. So the Philadelphia 76ers need to win this series, and I think that they will. I think that they're going to be the more hungry team here. Boston made the finals obviously last year, but if you do remember, Boston was kind of running the way with the number 1 seed earlier this year, but they've had kind of rough patches. That's how Milwaukee got back the first seed. I think that they had, a couple problems with a cohesion. Obviously, that sudden change they had from Ime Udoka to Joe Mazzulla, that's going to obviously lead to some problems. But I think this is going to go to a 7-game series. But ultimately, I think that Philadelphia finally gets one. I think they finally get over that hump and go to the Eastern Conference Finals.
All right, time to go over the conference finals. It's been a fun start with the show, much quicker than our MLB season preview from a couple weeks ago. My matchup, of course, I have Denver and the Kings. I like this matchup a lot. I think Sacramento, as I said, they're the underdog story, the story we all wanted. Haven't made the playoffs in such a long time, and they make a run like this to really. I think a run like this will really rejuvenate a franchise's fan base. And I think with a small market team like Sacramento, I think this is the perfect team to do it. Unfortunately, they run out of gas and lose to the Denver Nuggets in 6 games. I think Denver gets it done, advances to the NBA Finals, and heading to the East. I wanted to pick Milwaukee, but I feel like with the way just Boston sports this year, disregarding baseball, I feel like when one superpower goes down, more arise in sports, especially in a city like Boston. Because if you don't follow hockey, the Boston Bruins are unstoppable. They've won like 63 games.
Rangers have something to say about that.
Well, we'll see about that in a couple of weeks. But if there's another team that wants to rise up, first of all, it wouldn't be the Red Sox. It'd be the Celtics. They get it done. They win in 6. I think Boston wins games 2. They go up 3-1. They lose game 5, and then they win game 6. I think Boston gets it done. My NBA Finals will be Denver and Boston. I cannot wait to talk about that in a second.
So my Western Conference Finals is going to be the Suns against the Grizzlies. I'm going to say the Suns win in 6. I really like this Suns team. I think they are they're as talented as they come. The Grizzlies obviously at this point would be taking a very terrific journey to get here, but I think this is where the journey ends for them. I think the Suns also the experience, they want to get back here. They got just 2 years ago, right? Got eliminated in the finals or lost in the finals, and they don't want to get eliminated early. They want to make it there. They made the Kevin Durant trade to get them over that hump. They have to get to the finals first to get over that hump, and I think they're going to do it. As for the other side, Bucks, Celtics, I think this is going to be a very good series. I think it's going to go to 7 games. I understand your logic with the Boston teams, right? Philadelphia, they all make the finals. They all lose. Boston, New York, it's like just random. One team will make it and everyone else will suck. In Boston, it's every year one team has to go to the final, it feels like. I mean, last year there was the Boston Celtics. And I don't know, maybe this is the Bruins year. Maybe the Celtics will lose out. Or lose in the conference finals. That's exactly what's going to happen. I'm going to say the Bucks win win the series in 7. They're just an extremely talented team, and my finals are going to be, just like they were 2 years ago, 2021, Suns, Bucks.
So I also have the same Western Conference Finals between the Phoenix Suns and the Memphis Grizzlies, and I also have the same pick. I got them winning in 6 games. Now, look, I do like Memphis. I like Ja Morant, like Dylan Brooks, Jaren Jackson Jr. Obviously, once again, like I said, pretty good team, but they had obviously their run-ins earlier in the season with the whole Ja Morant controversy. But like Chris was saying, Phoenix is meant to win now. You were a team that was just 2 wins away from making it to one of the NBA Finals just a couple of years ago, and now adding Kevin Durant, the expectations are sky high. And they still have some pretty solid depth. You still have Cameron Payne, of course, off that bench. You still have Landry Shamet. So I think they're going to get it done. I think the Suns go back to the NBA Finals. I think this is a team that's meant to. Obviously, adding Kevin Durant, that really raises the temperature in the room to very high. But, Chris Paul, even at point guard, Chris Paul, he's getting up there in age, but he really doesn't have to do a lot because Devin Booker and Kevin Durant will take over the score, and that they will do. Phoenix Suns win in 6 games. Milwaukee and Philadelphia is my Eastern Conference Finals, and that while I do think that Philadelphia was a huge accomplishment just getting here, I think that their run does end pretty easily here. I think the Milwaukee Bucks beat them in 5 games. So also, like Chris, I do have a rematch of the 2021 Finals with the Phoenix Suns and the Milwaukee Bucks.
All right, time for my NBA Finals prediction. We are finally here. And mine is Denver and the Boston Celtics. Now, I'll go into both teams. Denver, really big 2 names with Jamal Murray and Jokic. And on Boston, you have Tatum and their extreme depth. I want to pick both of them because I feel like they're both really good. And my original pick, when I made multiple brackets for this, and most of my brackets have said Boston in 7. But I can't do it. So not because I don't like Boston. I was able to go. It's a great place, but I'm going with another Colorado team to win a championship over the last year and a little bit more. Denver in 7 wins the NBA Finals in 2023. It's going to be fun. No one's going to win a road game. I think it's going to be very predictable. But at the same time, I feel like it's going to be very interesting to watch. Denver gets it done. Chris.
I'd say the Bucks win this.
All right.
I think they're going to win it in 7.
I like it.
It's hard to win a championship. It's even harder than that is winning 2 championships in the span of 3 years or back-to-back is almost impossible. It's very close. It's very, very, very difficult to do that. It's very difficult to win a championship 2 years ago and come back and win it again. What's even harder than that, I believe, is doing the same thing, getting here again, trying to win it, and trying to win it against the team that you beat 2 years ago. It's very hard, but I think they're going to do it. I think it's going to be a lot closer. Right now, you got a new player on the Suns compared to last time. They have Kevin Durant, so it's not easier. But I'm going to say the Bucks get it done. I really am. I think it's going to be a very hard fought series. I think there are going to be some road victories, some close games. I think there might be a blowout thrown in there, but for the most part, some very close games. It's going to be anything you can ask for from entertainment value in an NBA final. It's going to go all the way. We're going to have a very close Game 7, and the Milwaukee Bucks are going to win it.
So if you do remember, I do have the same finals here with the Suns and Bucks. I do also think that for the first time since that epic, one of the greatest, maybe the greatest basketball game of all time between the Cavaliers and Warriors, we're going to get another Game 7 in the NBA Finals. But like you, Chris, I'm taking the Phoenix Suns. And the reason why is because I just want to go back to 2021 for a second. The Suns had a 2-0 lead in this series. Everyone thought that, hey, they're going to win the finals. They win their first championship. But then Giannis Antetokounmpo really kind of established himself as the best player in the world. They stormed back when the next 4 games they won in 6. And I still think Giannis is the best player in the world. I think he's going to take over that mantle, take over that throne. But this Suns team was trying to win a championship following that heartbreaking loss. And obviously getting Kevin Durant, that's going to be huge. Now, Kevin Durant is a guy who has faced a lot of criticism because he always changes teams, right? Especially leaving the Thunder for the Golden State Warriors. Such a controversial move. He still actually has not won a championship since those days in Golden State. Now, people will say that, well, he lost to the Milwaukee Bucks when he was with the Brooklyn Nets, but this Phoenix Suns team is clearly more well set up than that Brooklyn Nets team was. Kyrie Irving and James Harden were just kind of like Kevin Durant. They were just scorers. They didn't really contribute much on the defensive end. But when I look at Phoenix, I see a much more well-rounded basketball team. I see Chris Paul, and I just talked about it before. He's, getting up there in age, but clearly a Hall of Fame level point guard. He has a specific role on this team. He's just a floor general, get guys open. He's not going to score a lot, maybe only score 10 points a game, but he knows what his role is. Devin Booker, he's the traditional scoring 2 guard. He puts up a lot of points. We saw, just really his dedication to this franchise, staying there for so long and now finally being a championship contender. Kevin Durant, obviously, is just a superstar. He actually was the first ever player to join the 55, 40, and 90 club, shooting 55% from the field, 40% free, 90% from the free throw line. And, DeAndre Ayton as well, they having that established center as well who can really contest with Giannis in the paint. I do think they win the series in 7. Now, Milwaukee, do not get me wrong, they're going to be around for a very long time. Although they are kind of an older roster, I think that Giannis, just having him on your team, you're always going to be competitive. But I do think the Suns exact revenge for that championship. Here's a fact. The Phoenix Suns actually have the 5th highest win percentage in NBA history and the 2nd highest win percentage among teams who've never won a championship. They finally get that elusive championship. Their move for Kevin Durant finally pays off. Chris Paul finally gets his first ring, and Kevin Durant gets his first ring since the Warriors. Phoenix Suns win in 7 games.
All right, so with the time remaining, we got 10 minutes left. I think Chris brought this up a couple weeks ago with the MLB rule changes. And I felt like, well, we've had a couple weeks to assess it. Let's go over it a little bit. So my initial reaction I found out about was it's not going to be really good for the game. It's going to take out crucial parts. It's going to be way too short. And I'm going to say I'm right and wrong about this. What I was wrong about, that it would really obstruct the game. It didn't. Not really. I don't think the pitch clocks had that much of an effect on pitchers as I thought it would. Yet, I think long term it could have more effects. But I think as more pitchers get used to it more, I feel like it'll be better for the game. What I was right about was that games were too short. Now, I agree with the idea that games could be shorter. I do agree that's a fair reason. What happened a week ago with the Twins and the Marlins cannot happen. 2-hour game. I'm not saying this is bad for the people who want to watch it on TV. I think it's bad because I think it might bring less fans to the stadium if this continues to happen. Because with the prices that some of these stadiums are, I know this. I've been to a couple of them. They could go up while the game time goes down. Especially think how long is an NBA game? 2.5 hours?
Yeah. That's basically what baseball is now.
Now that's what it is now. And I feel like a lot of stadiums are going to bring their tickets up because the game could be more interesting with the shorter time period. It could bring more people to the stadium. From a business perspective, that can happen. So, in saying that, I think right now, a couple weeks into this season, I think it's both good and bad for the league. If I had to rate it out of 10, I'd say the move is currently a 6.5, solely because I think it was horrible. It's a bad look, and I think we could see in the future as it being a bad look, not for the people who are watching the game on TV, but for fans in the stadium. I think that could be a problem long term if the games continue to get shortened. I think we could have I think there's a chance at it that less fans come to the stadium due to possibly tickets going up, fan attendance maybe going down. But I'll give it a 6.5.
Well, initially, that in my opinion, I was.
You had a fair opinion on this.
I was very on the fence with it. Personally, I believe I didn't really see how the pitch clock would really drive people to want to watch baseball. I brought this up before. People who don't like watching baseball or don't like watching sports, including baseball, they don't like watching baseball because they don't like baseball. They don't care about the time. If you really love something, you will watch it for as long as you can.
Oh, yeah.
If you have a favorite TV show, you will binge that show all day. If you have a favorite movie, you'll watch that movie over and over again.
Oh,
or if you love a sport, you will sit there all day and watch that sport, that game.
The Masters.
Right.
Last week.
If you love baseball, I love baseball. I'm as big a fan of this game as you will find. I love long games. I remember back in the days when I was angry about the runner on second base start extra innings rule because I loved those because they didn't happen very often. Those 16-inning games, the 18-inning World Series thriller against the Dodgers Red Sox. That was a classic.
That playoff game with Washington
State right.
Just got out to 17 innings.
I love it, and I'll sit there as long as I have to watch it. It doesn't bother me, but then I think about, but yeah, and also, I thought maybe pitchers could get hurt more because they're trying to pitch faster, and you saw Verlander's on the injured list. I don't know if there's a correlation with that in the pitch clock. So. And as you mentioned, games being way shorter than they need to be, and then the amount of pitch clock violations that can happen, which we've seen quite a few of those. And how the first time it happened in spring training, people are calling it madness and it's crazy. But let's be real, you don't want a Game 7 of the World Series or any big playoff game or series to end with a pitch clock violation. You don't want that. That is horrific, terrible for the game if that happens. So I think, I was open to, but I was very open to this idea, right? I was very open to shortening games, right? Seeing what it can do for the game, and I'm giving it a chance. I said I was giving it a chance in spring training, and you know what? It's not. I think it's grown on me a little bit, quite a bit more. I have to say, I don't really notice it very often. It's not so much, because eventually I'll start going to more games, but I don't. It feels like from watching some of the games, it doesn't feel like this game is shorter. It feels like I'm watching what I was watching before, but it's an hour. It ended an hour earlier than usual. So it's not the worst thing in the world. I really have honestly almost forgotten about it. I know a lot of people aren't a fan of it, and I listen. I think that's where I lie, because there are some people who are very, on certain ends of this. People who absolutely love it and hate those who hate it, and then there are those who hate it and absolutely hate those who love it. I'm on both sides. If you don't like it, then go right ahead and not like it. But if you love it, love it. Just don't criticize other people for believing or feeling the way they do about it. Matt Strum, pitcher for the Phillies, brought up an interesting point. He does not like the pitch clock at all, and he's a pitcher. You have some people saying, put the guy who made the pitch clock in the Hall of Fame. There are people who love this thing, but Matt Strum is not one of those guys. He doesn't like it, and he mentioned how some stadiums are selling beer later, stopping their sales of beer by the 8th inning. And he's absolutely right about that being an issue, because, the point of not selling beer after the 7th inning was so that you have time to sober up by the time you're driving, right? So, I mean, it's a real issue. But then again, in life, right, you're going to be, people can be stupid enough to drink and drive regardless of restrictions. So it's going to happen. I think that's just the reality of it. But he doesn't like it, and I respect his opinion. I respect anyone's opinion, but it's definitely grown on me quite a bit.
I'd say I'm a fan of the pitch clock because I just never really saw the need for all that downtime. If it's not needed, I say you should get rid of it. Now, I kind of want to bring up the NBA here, because the NBA recently banned the foul on a fast break, because they said, what's the point of having all that dead time? We're just taking free throws. Fans want to see action. I think that doing that, you deliver more action, that it kind of accelerates the pace of the game. And I'm in support of it. Now, look, people obviously have their transgressions against it, but I do commend the MLB in the sense that they're kind of typically, we can all agree, the most traditional sports league in all American sports. And the fact that they're willing to show this amount of change shows that they are really committed to improving their league. Now, I am not a fan of the extra base runner in the ninth and the extra innings. I don't like that on second base. Thankfully, they do get rid of that for the postseason, but I think that they do have made some good changes, others that maybe aren't so good. But I think the pitch clock is good because it's logical. What was the need for waiting 30 seconds in between all pitches? And it's not like it's really making it that much shorter, right? Because we even said NBA games are 2.5 hours long as well, and those are still really highly watched big games as well. So it's not like it's making it like an hour and a half. But there are still games that we've seen that have gone, over 3 hours. So it's not that far out of the realm of possibility. So I do think it's a good move. I think they're moving in the right direction, and I support the pitch clock.
One final note before we sign off for the day. You're probably wondering, Robbie, why are you wearing a USA kit? Thing to watch tomorrow, if you're not watching anything at 3 p.m. local time, the CONCACAF Gold Cup. Do some research on it. The draw is tomorrow. Who will the Stars and Stripes face? I cannot wait for that tournament in July, because there's games all around the country, and hopefully they get to play in New Jersey, because I have a feeling that at least one, maybe two of us, maybe even all of us go. But that'll be another story for another time. That is all for this week of Into the Stands. It was a fun episode today. We had a lot to talk about. Next week, it's going to be interesting. Remember, 2 weeks away from our big NFL draft special at 7 p.m. on April 27th. That's when it starts. You don't want to miss it. Oh, and by the way, we do have a regular episode before then at 5 o'clock. So for all of us here with Colin and Chris, I'm Robbie Basil. We'll see you guys next week.